My sister said, "I used your savings for my wedding. You'll understand someday." But when the bills arrived and she disappeared, I finally understood what she meant. My name's Andrew, I'm 30, and I've never been one for drama. I live in a small apartment above a bakery that smells like heaven every morning, work long hours in IT, and save every dollar like it's sacred. 3 years of skipped vacations, used cars, and secondhand furniture, all to finally afford a down payment on my first home. That number, $38,000, wasn't just money. It was proof that I was building something stable in a family that had never really known stability. Then came the call from my younger sister, Emily, 26, chaotic, well-meaning, and completely unaware of consequences. "Jake proposed," she squealed through the phone, her joy so big it almost drowned out my exhaustion. I congratulated her, told her I'd help however I could. After our parents died, helping her had become second nature. A few weeks later, we were at dinner with relatives, candles flickering, wine flowing, laughter easy. Then Emily lifted her glass, eyes sparkling. "Oh, and I used some of your savings. You'll understand someday." Everyone laughed, except me. My fork froze midair. "What do you mean you used them?" I asked. She gave that infuriating big sister to little brother smile, the one she'd used since we were kids. "Relax," she said. "I just borrowed a little for the wedding deposit. It's family, right?" I spent that night staring at the ceiling, telling myself I must have misheard her. Maybe it was just an exaggerated toast. Emily's idea of humor had always been a little tone-deaf. The next morning, I checked my banking app just to be sure. The number still glowed at me, $38,247.36. Safe. I exhaled, made coffee, went to work. But something in her tone had bothered me. A casual entitlement that didn't fit the "I'm joking" defense. I decided to leave it be. She'd never actually take something that wasn't hers, right? A week later, I logged in again, half out of habit. $3,102.09. For a moment, I thought it was a glitch. I refreshed the screen. Same result. Then I saw the line item. Transfer to Emily Harris, $35,000. My vision tunneled. I called her immediately, straight to voicemail. Texted, "Where's my money?" Read. No reply. That evening, I found her location through the family group chat. She'd posted a selfie at a bridal boutique. Hashtag, said yes to the dress. I drove there, heart pounding, a knot of disbelief and anger tightening with each mile. The boutique smelled like roses and champagne. Emily stood on a pedestal, surrounded by her bridesmaids, twirling in an $8,000 gown like she was in a commercial. When she saw me, her face lit up. Not with guilt, but with the kind of joy that comes from knowing the world will bend to you. "Don't I look amazing?" she said, spinning. I could barely speak. "You stole my savings." Her smile faltered for half a second, then morphed into annoyance. "Oh my God. Stop acting like a victim. You're my brother. I'm borrowing it. Without asking? I was going to tell you, but you'd just freak out and I needed to lock in the venue. I'll pay you back after the wedding." "With what, Emily? You don't even have a full-time job." She rolled her eyes. "Jake and I will figure it out. You're making this so dramatic." Everyone in the shop went silent. I could feel the pitying glances, the whispered judgments, the poor guys overreacting. I wanted to scream, but instead I just left. The bell over the boutique door jingled like mock applause as I walked out. That night, the text started. First from Emily, "You embarrassed me today. Can you just let it go?" Then from Jake, her fiancé, "Emily says you're trying to ruin the wedding. Maybe don't show up." I stared at the message, stunned. I'd been demoted from helpful brother to uninvited guest in less than 24 hours. Over the next few days, the family group chat lit up with subtle pressure. Our aunt sent, "Families help each other. She's just excited." My cousin chimed in, "It's only money, dude. She's getting married." I realized the problem wasn't just Emily. It was the entire ecosystem that had enabled her. Every time she crossed a line growing up, someone had smoothed it over. She didn't mean it. She's young. You're the older one, Andrew. Be the bigger person. And I had been for 26 years. Now I sat in my small apartment, looking at the spreadsheet where I tracked every sacrifice. Skipped vacations, overtime shifts, the car I never upgraded. Each line item was a small piece of discipline. And with one impulsive borrow, she'd erased it all. I called the bank the next morning. Because she was listed as a trusted contact. An emergency precaution I'd added when our mom got sick. The transfer wasn't technically unauthorized. My own safety net had become the hole she slipped through. I texted her again. This isn't a misunderstanding. You need to return the money immediately. She replied, I can't. It's already in vendor deposits. You'll get it back after the wedding, I promise. Promises from Emily were like smoke, visible for a second, then gone. That night, Jake posted an engagement photo of them under twinkling lights, captioned, 2 souls, 1 journey. I scrolled through the comments, dozens of congratulations, heart emojis, prayers for lifelong happiness. And there, buried in the middle, Emily's reply to a friend asking about the venue. My amazing brother helped us make it happen. Couldn't do it without him. It was the first time I understood that she wasn't sorry. She was proud. That was the moment the joke stopped being funny. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself I'd stay home, crack open a beer, and watch strangers get married on YouTube. People who at least didn't steal from their siblings. But guilt is a funny thing. It doesn't reason with you. My late mother's voice echoed in my head even though she'd been gone for years. Family forgives, Andrew. Don't make a scene. When Aunt Marcy called, her tone was the same blend of concern and manipulation I'd known since childhood. Don't embarrass her, Andrew. It's her big day. She'll pay you back. Sweetheart, just let her have this. So I put on the only suit I owned, bought a card that said congratulations, and drove to the venue I had unknowingly funded. The place was stunning. Chandeliers, white roses, and a live string quartet playing 1,000 years. Every detail screamed expensive. I found my seat near the back, unnoticed, just another background character in her fairy tale. Emily floated down the aisle in that $8,000 dress like she was gliding through a dream. Her smile was radiant. Her eyes glimmered. For a moment, I almost believed she deserved it all. Then I remembered the line on my bank statement, and the hollow feeling of watching years of work vanish with a tap of her finger. The ceremony ended in applause. Champagne poured. Laughter echoed. I stayed quiet, sipped slowly, kept to myself, until the microphone appeared. Emily, slightly tipsy, stood at the head table in front of 200 guests. I just want to say a few words, she began, voice trembling with the kind of performative emotion that photographs well. This day means everything to me and Jake, and it wouldn't have been possible without my family, especially my amazing brother, Andrew. I felt heads turn toward me. I managed a polite smile, even nodded. Then she kept going. A toast to my brother. None of this would have happened without him. She laughed, that light, tinkling sound that always meant trouble. Literally, he paid for half the wedding. The crowd erupted in laughter. The band chuckled. Even the photographer smiled as he snapped a picture of me sitting stiffly, holding a champagne flute I couldn't bring myself to raise. My jaw tightened. I wanted to stand up to shout the truth. That she hadn't asked, that she'd stolen. But what would it change? They'd still laugh. They'd still call me dramatic. I'd just become the villain in her carefully crafted story. So I sat there, every muscle burning with silent fury. When the laughter died, Emily moved on to thank her wonderful new husband for being her rock. The moment passed, swallowed by cake and confetti. But the image of her grin, wide, victorious, unapologetic, was seared into my memory. After dinner, she approached me briefly near the bar, all smiles. "Don't be mad," she whispered. "It was just a joke. You're too serious about everything." I looked at her, really looked, and saw not my sister, but a stranger wearing her face. "You embarrassed me," I said quietly. "You stole from me, and you humiliated me in front of everyone." Her expression hardened. You need to grow up, Andrew. Money comes and goes. Family doesn't. She walked away before I could answer, already being pulled onto the dance floor by Jake. I left without saying goodbye. 2 days later, my calls went unanswered. Then I saw it, her name gray on my phone. Blocked. My messages bounced. The only response came from Jake. Emily's on our honeymoon. She'll handle it later. Handle what? A stolen $35,000? A lifetime of trust she'd shattered with a laugh? That was when it clicked. She'd never planned to pay me back. Not then, not ever. The borrow was a story she told herself so she could still look in the mirror. Over the next week, I replayed that toast in my head again and again. The sparkle in her eyes, the laughter, the applause. It wasn't just the theft. It was the public pride in what she'd done. The way she turned my sacrifice into a punchline. I started to notice the silence after. No one from the family reached out. No one asked if I was okay. To them, the joke had landed. I was the uptight older brother who didn't know how to take a little teasing. What they didn't realize was that something in me had shifted that night. I'd spent my life being the responsible one, the fixer, the quiet safety net everyone fell back on. But a safety net, if stretched too long without care, eventually snaps. And that's exactly what I plan to do next, quietly, methodically, without a single raised voice. If Emily wanted to turn me into a character in her story, I'd let her. But I'd be the plot twist she never saw coming. The envelope came on a Tuesday, the kind of unremarkable day when you think the worst thing that can happen is a slow Wi-Fi connection. It was thin, cream-colored, embossed with the logo of the Riverside Garden Estate, the same venue where I'd been humiliated a month earlier. For a second, I thought it was a thank you card. Maybe, just maybe, Emily had grown a conscience. But when I tore it open, my stomach dropped. Outstanding balance, $12,487. Dear Mr. Andrew Harris, payment for the Harris-Cooper wedding remains unpaid. As you are listed as the guarantor, please remit payment within 10 business days to avoid additional fees. Guarantor. The word sat on the page like a curse. I called the venue immediately. A woman answered, polite, professional, and utterly unimpressed by panic. Riverside Garden Estate. This is Colleen speaking. Hi, this is Andrew Harris. I just received a letter saying I'm the guarantor for the Harris-Cooper wedding. There's been a mistake. There was a pause as she typed. Then her voice softened, slightly wary. Sir, you're listed as the financial guarantor on the signed contract. We received a check from you for the deposit, but it was later canceled. I blinked. I never signed any contract. I never wrote a check. Yes, you did, she said carefully. At least that's what our paperwork shows. Signature matches. Driver's license number, same as what's on file. I felt cold all over. Can you email me a copy of that contract? 10 minutes later, there it was. A scanned PDF of my handwriting, my name, my signature. Except it wasn't mine. It was Emily's imitation of mine, right down to the way I loop my R's. She'd used an old scan of my driver's license, too. One she must have found in Mom's filing cabinet from when she was helping me refinance my car years ago. She hadn't just taken my savings. She'd used my identity to build her wedding. The next morning, I walked into the local police station, folder in hand. The officer at the front desk looked skeptical until I laid everything out. The contract, the transfer records, the email from the venue. A detective came out to speak with me. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes but a practiced distance. This qualifies as fraud, she said, flipping through the documents. Identity theft, possibly forgery. We'll need to file a formal report and contact the venue for verification. Hearing those words, identity theft, was both horrifying and relieving. Horrifying because it meant my sister had crossed a line that couldn't be smoothed over with family dinners and apologies. Relieving because for once, someone besides me was calling it what it was. When I told Mom later that day, I naively hoped for understanding. Instead, I got fire. You'd really do this to your own sister? She snapped over the phone. Drag her name through the mud? Over money? Over fraud, Mom. She forged my signature. She's your sister. Family fixes things privately. She committed a crime. There was silence. Then that exhausted sigh only mothers can give. The one that means you're the disappointment now. You've changed, Andrew. You used to protect her. I did, I said quietly. That's the problem. For a week, the calls from debt collectors started rolling in. Catering company, florist, photographer. Apparently, Emily hadn't paid a single bill after the deposit. Every one of them had the same phrase. You're listed as a secondary contact and guarantor. Mom's house phone began ringing too. First, she ignored it. Then she called me late one night, voice trembling. They're saying I co-signed something. Andrew, what is happening? She used your name too, Mom. She must have copied both of our info. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. She wouldn't do that. She did. The next day, Mom forwarded me a voicemail from a debt collection agency demanding payment for event planning services. The invoice was over $9,000. That's when her outrage started to fade. Within a week, she went from furious to frightened. The bank said I might have to dispute this in writing, she murmured. I don't even know what to say. Say the truth, I told her. Your daughter forged your signature. But Emily didn't pick up the phone. Her voicemail was full. Texts went unanswered. Even her social media had gone quiet. The once constant stream of honeymoon photos and #LoveWins captions vanished overnight. I reached out to Jake, her husband. Where's Emily? No response. The next day, his account went private. The detective left a voicemail. We've contacted the venue and confirmed the signature discrepancies. We're moving forward with the investigation. That should have felt like justice, but all I felt was grief. The slow, suffocating kind that comes when you realize your family isn't who you thought they were. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be her. Emily calling, crying, begging forgiveness. But she didn't. She'd vanished completely, like a magician after the final act, leaving me holding the empty hat and the bill for the rabbit. And somewhere between the invoices and the silence, I stopped thinking of her as my sister. She had become something else entirely, a ghost with my signature. 2 months later, the detective called. Her tone was calm, professional, but I could hear the faint satisfaction of a case that had finally unraveled. We found her, she said. Your sister's been staying with a friend in the next city over. She's broke and recently separated from her husband. Jake had walked out after discovering she'd opened 2 credit cards and a store account under his name, totaling nearly $18,000. Apparently, his first clue had been a Best Buy bill for a television he never owned. When he confronted her, she told him it was a wedding gift refund investment. It was the same pattern. A tiny lie, wrapped in charm, scaled into a disaster. By the time law enforcement reached her, she was sleeping on a couch in a friend's apartment, her designer purse sitting beside a stack of unopened collection notices. The detective said she didn't resist, didn't argue, just cried and said, "It got out of hand." The investigation confirmed everything. The forged signature on the venue contract, the canceled check, the falsified identification. Even the bank transfer trail was clear. The $35,000 had gone into her account, then to a series of wedding vendors. Every invoice, every message, all tied back to her. The district attorney called it what it was: grand theft and identity fraud. When I heard the charges, I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired, bone-deep, soul-weary tired. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted the noise to stop, the debt to end, the truth to finally sit in the open where everyone could see it. Mom didn't speak to me for the first few weeks of the investigation. When she finally did, it was through text. I wish you'd handled this differently, but I can't keep defending her anymore. That was as close to an apology as she'd ever come. The criminal process moved faster than I expected. Emily's court-appointed lawyer argued that she hadn't meant to steal, only borrow without permission. He said she'd been under emotional stress while planning her wedding and acted without malicious intent. When it was my turn to testify, I told the court exactly what happened. No anger, no theatrics, just facts. How I'd saved for years. how she'd transferred the money, how she'd humiliated me publicly, forged my name, and vanished. The judge, an older woman with a face carved from patience, listened quietly. Then came Emily's turn. She cried the moment she sat down. Her voice broke as she said, "I just wanted a perfect wedding. Everyone else gets one. I thought I could fix it before he found out." For a second, I almost pitied her. Then she looked at me and said, "I never thought he'd actually press charges. Family doesn't do that." That sentence landed like a punch. Even then, even facing the truth, she saw herself as the victim, not of her choices, but of my refusal to cover them up. The verdict came quickly. Guilty of theft and fraud, first offense. The judge sentenced her to 18 months of probation, community service, and a $12,000 fine, payable directly to me as restitution. The DA had wanted jail time, but I told them I didn't need that. I just wanted accountability. She didn't look at me until the very end. As the bailiff guided her out, she turned, eyes swollen, and whispered, "You ruined my life." I answered quietly, "No, Emily. You ruined your own when you took mine." The words echoed in the hallway after she was gone. For the first time in years, the silence that followed didn't feel like defeat. It felt like air returning to my lungs. The restitution came in slow payments, a few hundred here, a few hundred there. Enough to close the outstanding balances from the venue and the credit collectors. It wasn't justice in full, but it was enough. Mom never came to court. But 2 weeks after the sentencing, she sent a letter. It wasn't long, just a few lines in her shaky handwriting. "I finally saw the reports. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I raised you both, but only one of you learned what honesty costs." I read it once, folded it, and tucked it into my desk drawer beside my mortgage paperwork. The one that represented what I'd been saving for before all this began. Sometimes, at night, I think about the toast she gave at that wedding, how everyone laughed when she said I'd paid for it all. In a way, I had. But now, at least, the laughter had stopped. She'd lost her marriage, her reputation, her freedom. All for a fantasy of perfection that never existed. And me? I'd lost a sister, but gained something that felt almost as valuable as the money I'd been saving. Peace. Cold, quiet, unremarkable peace. A year passed. It didn't feel like healing, more like a quiet untangling. One small knot of anger at a time. One habit of checking my bank app every morning. One reflexive flinch whenever an unknown number called. Eventually, the noise faded into something manageable. I sold my old car, the one with the squeaky brakes that had carried me through years of overtime and long drives home. Used the money to pay off my last loan. Then I packed up my apartment, the one where her voice still lingered in old voicemails, and moved to another city. New job, new place, no ghosts. I didn't tell anyone where. Not Mom. Not the cousins. Not the handful of relatives who'd called me heartless for going to the police. Freedom, I learned, doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it's just silence. A phone that doesn't buzz. A mailbox that stays empty. Except it didn't stay empty for long. The first letter from Emily arrived 3 months after sentencing. The handwriting was familiar, looping and dramatic, the way she used to sign birthday cards. "Andrew," it began. "I'm sorry. I've changed. I know I hurt you, but I was in a bad place. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. A month later, another one came. Then another. Each letter tried on a different tone, like outfits she was testing in front of a mirror. One was tearful. One was defensive. One sounded almost proud. You have no idea how much pressure I was under. Everyone wanted a perfect wedding. I thought it would make Mom proud. I didn't mean for it to go this far. By the 6th letter, she'd shifted to guilt. "Family doesn't abandon family. You've made your point. Now please let me come home." I read them all once, then placed them in a shoebox. Never replied. Never sent them back. Just kept them, proof, I guess, that some people confuse forgiveness with permission. Mom still calls every few weeks. Her voice is softer now, older somehow. "She's doing better," she says. "Got a job at a floral shop. She's been paying off what she owes. She asks about you." I tell her the same thing every time. I'm glad she's getting her life together. Then comes the sigh, the pause, the inevitable line. She's your sister, Andrew. You have to forgive her eventually. But I can't. Because forgiveness, real forgiveness, doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means looking at someone who burned you and saying, I see you, and I still choose peace. I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. I don't hate her. I don't wish her harm. I just don't trust her. And without trust, family is just a word people hide behind when they want something. Sometimes friends, new ones who don't know the story, ask about my family. I keep it vague. It's complicated. If they push, if they ask, don't you feel bad for cutting her off? I tell them the truth. Helping family is one thing. Letting them rob you is another. They usually go quiet after that. I've rebuilt most of what I lost. My credit's clean. My savings are slowly growing again. I even started looking at houses, modest ones, nothing grand. The irony isn't lost on me. I finally have enough to do what I'd planned years ago, just without the people I thought I was doing it for. Some nights, I still hear her voice from that dinner, half drunk on champagne and attention. Oh, and I used some of your savings. You'll understand someday. She laughed when she said it like it was a harmless joke. A line in a family comedy. Back then, I didn't understand at all. But now I do. I understand that you'll understand someday wasn't about weddings or money. It was about how people like her live, believing love entitles them to everything, even what they haven't earned. I understand that family doesn't mean unconditional access, that blood doesn't buy forgiveness, and that sometimes peace costs distance. So when I close my new apartment door at night, lock it twice, and sit in the quiet, I smile. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not the safety net. I'm not the fixer. I'm just a man who learned where the line is, and finally had the courage to stop crossing it for someone else. And yeah, Emily, you were right. I do understand now. Just not the way you ever wanted me to.